Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Elder Bean. Hope you're doing well, hope you're all good, as per usual. Today we're looking at Troy from 2014. But before we get to all of that, I want to do housekeeping, because I got to keep my house, my palace, nice and clean. So to do that and to help me with that, make sure that you follow me on X at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify on your mobile phone, don't forget to give me a follow and to rate the podcast 5 stars. So, as I said, we're looking at Troy from 2004. I am incredibly excited to be talking about this movie today for multiple reasons. For one, the success of last year. So last year, I reviewed Gladiator. It was the first time watching it. The review went really, really well. People seemed to like it. And it kind of got me in that mood of wanting to watch more movies like this. Not just movies that are like based kind of like a Greek tale, Greek myth, but also, again, because we don't see them a lot anymore, the historical action sort of movies, like the Kingdoms of Heaven, I think, is one with Orlando Bloom. This movie, Gladiator, and the works, really, we don't see movies like this anymore, and it scratched that itch, shall we say. So I went out and I wanted to look for more movies like this, and the first one that came up after watching Gladiator was Troy. And I'm always very fascinating and talking about Troy, to be honest, because it is a fascinating period of history, specifically how it was known for a long time just to be a story. And then sort of archaeologists came along, they followed the clues in the story, and they actually found the lost city of Troy. So that kind of adds some sort of truth to the mystery of, the battle of Troy. It probably did exist. It probably did happen. Don't know if the Trojan horse happened, but me being me, I love to think it did happen. So I am very, very fascinated, interested. Also, Gladiator 2 came out last year and did gangbusters, did really, really well. I haven't watched it yet. My mom's watched it. She said it's brilliant, So I'm kind of in that space of I want to watch more movies like this, whether they be good or bad. I don't really care. It's just, Gladiator has sparked this flame in me, and I just want to experience more like this. And that's why we're talking about Troy today. So yeah, let's get into it, shall we? So as for the sort of synopsis of the movie, so I had to run this through a sort of text-to-speech app on my computer, because I struggled, again, with my dyslexia, to read a lot of the names, but I'm going to try my best. I can, but again, if I make mistakes, please bear with me. So it goes as follows. While visiting Spartan king Menelaus, Trojan prince Paris falls for Menelaus' wife, Helen, and takes her back to Troy. Menelaus' brother, King Agamemnon, having already defeated every army in Greece, used his brother's fury as a pretext to declare war against Troy, the last kingdom preventing his control over the Argentinian Sea. So that is a synopsis for the story. As for the cast, so we've got Brad Pitt as Achilles, the Achilles, named for the Achilles heel. Eric Bana as Hector. Orlando Bloom, as Paris. Julian Glover as Tropius. Brian Cox as Agamemnon. Nathan Jones as Bogarius. Adonio Matthias as Agamemnon's officer. Jacob Smith as messenger boy. John Shrapnel as Nestor. Brendan Gleeson, didn't know he was in this, but I'm really, really happy to see him, as Milenus, and Diane Kruger as Helen. That is your cast. As for the production of this, so believe it or not, for such a big movie, it was really hard to find anything on the production about this film. I managed to sort of concoct quite a bit, and sort of one interesting part with a very notable an ironic director, considering what this director is currently directing now as I record this, which is kind of interesting. So I think you'll like it. So this is what I found on the production. So the city of Troy was built on the Mediterranean island of Malta at Fort Resicola from April to June 2003. Other important scenes were shot in Milan, a small town in the north of Malta and on the island of Comino. The outer walls of Troy were built and filmed in the Cabo San Lucas area in Mexico. Film production was disrupted for a period after Hurricane Marty affected filming areas. Pitt also suffered an injury to his Achilles tendon, which is ironic because he's playing Achilles, during filming, which caused the production to delay for several weeks. Terry Gilliam who I love Terry Gilliam, I need to look into more movies of his, turned down the offer to direct the film, as he said, and I quote, "Did not understand how you can make a film based on the poem the Iliad without the participation of the Greek gods." I completely agree. That's one of the things that fascinates and interests me about this movie. Also, this is the interesting part. Christopher Nolan was then offered to direct the film, but turned it down as he wasn't feeling it and chose to direct Batman Begins instead. Now, that's interesting because he turned it down, but he's now doing The Odyssey, which I think if I know my Greek mythology correctly, I think the Odyssey comes first, then it's the Iliad, or it's somewhere the other around. Either way, he's now doing the Odyssey, which I think is phenomenal. That he was asked to do this, he didn't want to do it because he wasn't feeling it, he wasn't feeling at the right time, and now he feels like it's the right time, and now he's doing the Odyssey, which I'm incredibly excited for. So that's a lot of fun. Anyway, going on, Wolfgang Peterson was hired instead. The role of Brias was initially offered to Bollywood actress Aishwarya Rai, but she turned it down because she was not comfortable during the lovemaking scenes that were included. Keira Knightley also auditioned, but the role eventually went to Rose Byrne. And that's that, really, from what I can find about the production. There is a little bit about the music, which I find is kind of interesting, which I'll share with you. So, composer Gabriel Yard originally worked on the score for Troy for over a year, having been hired by the director, Wolfgang Peterson. Tanja Karkowski provided vocals on various portions of the music, as she later would on composer James Horner's version of the soundtrack. However, the reactions at test screenings, which used an incomplete version of the score, were negative, and in less than a day, Yard was off the project without a chance to fix or change his music. James Horner composed a replacement score in about 4 weeks. He used Karkowski's vocals again and also included traditional Eastern Mediterranean music and brass instruments. Horner also collaborated with American singer-songwriter Josh Groban and lyricist Cynthia Whale to write an original song for the film's end credits. The production of this collaboration, Remember Me, was performed by Groban with additional vocals by Kavosky. The soundtrack for the film was released on May the 11th, 2004. So that's that really for the production. I am very much excited, and one of the reasons why obviously I'm doing it now is because I had planned to do this for like the end of summer, and like the episode will still come out around the end of summer when you're listening to it now. But I had planned to kind of watch it around the end of July, beginning of August, but Netflix, the buggers that they are, have basically put this as leaving soon. So this leaves Netflix by the July the 25th. And I'm currently recording this on the 5th of July. So it's like finding the time within work and life, it's going to be a bit difficult. So I'm in a bit of a small window that to watch this movie, but I am very much excited to do it. One thing I was planning on doing, I don't know if I'll get around to it or not, was to watch the original cut of the movie that was seen in theaters, and then to watch the director's cut, because the director's cut came out in 2007, and it has a lot of added extra scenes, and various shots were recut and extended for that version as well. Or I might just sort of watch that for my own sort of enjoyment at the end. It depends how much time I have left. But I'm very much excited for this movie, and hopefully it scratches at it. Hopefully it's a continuation of that feeling that I got when I watched Gladiator for the first time, where I just felt overwhelmed by the music, the story, the acting. Is it? I don't know. Maybe it isn't. There's probably people listening to this to me now going, "No, Luke, you're wrong. Don't do it." And there's probably people listening now going, "It's as brilliant as you think it is." So we will see. But I am just absolutely incredibly excited. So, yeah, I'm going to go off now, go to Netflix before they take it down, watch this movie. Fingers crossed it's going to be just as incredible, just as amazing. It might be, it might not be, who knows. But when we come back, I'm going to give my first impressions, talk about the story, music, production, overall thoughts, bit of trivia, and all that jazz. So until then, I will see you all in a minute. And welcome back, everybody. So I've now watched Troy. Well, I've watched it twice, actually. I watched it for the first time a couple of days ago, and I absolutely loved and enjoyed it. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic movie. And then I watched it, but it happened to be a day that we had a major heat wave. So it was like, it's too hot to go upstairs in my bedroom and record. But as I was watching it, near to the end, my mom, she really loves Gladiator. So she could hear the music in the background and all that. She's like, "Oh, you're watching Gladiator?" Came in. I was like, "Oh no, I'm watching Troy." And she like, it was near the end of the movie, and she got really into it. And then as the film ended, we went out to the shop and we came back, and because it was too hot, I came back downstairs. And she was like, "Well, what was that movie you was watching?" And I said, "Well, it's Troy. It's on Netflix. It'll be leaving soon." And she was, "Oh, put it on." So I ended up watching it a second time, and I'm kind of glad I did, not because I didn't enjoy it the first time, more just the fact of when you watch a movie this long, because this movie is about 2 hours and 40 minutes. When you watch a movie that long for a second time, once you already know what's going to happen, what's coming, you can notice the little details. You can notice more in terms of what characters say or what certain mannerisms or actions are done, because you're not. Because the spectacle is over, you've already seen behind the what's going on. Now, time to take a peek behind the curtain, sort of thing. And after watching it a second time, I actually enjoy it more than I did the first time round, because I could see those little bits of detail. Because long and short of it, I did really, really like it. It reminded me of like growing up. I used to watch mostly at Christmas time was like Jason the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, or what was it now? I think it was Jason and the Golden Fleece, or was that maybe that was Jason Argos? But like, do you remember those like 50s, 60s sort of Greek sort of movies where you'd get the hero comes in and like you'd have the gods and then you'd have the heroes and they'd go on their adventure and stuff like that. Like, it reminded me of that. The way this movie begins, you have like a title sequence where it says like, long ago there was two countries. There was Greece and then there was Troy, and that Agamemnon had conquered all with the help of Achilles, the greatest warrior that ever lived, and that the one land that he couldn't take was Troy. And this is that story. And then it goes straight into like a battle. And I just absolutely thought it was brilliant, and the fighting was great, and it was gruesome, and the story was interesting, and like I just love how it takes the Iliad, that original sort of text, and to put it onto screen. That would be fantastic. And I was just getting those nostalgia feelings of watching like Clash of Titans, Jason Argonauts, and those sort of movies when I was younger. The only sort of downside I have with this film is the fact of, I agree with Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan said that, I think it was Christopher Nolan and Terry Gilliam, one of them, possibly Terry Gilliam, basically said like, there's no point doing this movie without the gods. And I agree. Like, this movie's good. I do enjoy it. It's just the fact of, there are many moments where I'm like, the whole point of the Iliad, because I'm a weirdo. I've read the Iliad and I've read Odyssey, because I like Greek. At one stage in my life, I was a big fan of Greek mythology when I was younger. And in those stories, the Greeks love their gods. The Greeks are very much rule their life over what the gods are basically tell them to do, basically. And in the Iliad, if I remember correctly, Troy has the backing of I think it's Apollo, and it's a female god. I can't remember her name. Helen, I don't know. Can't remember the name of the female, but I think they've got those gods, and then there's another set of gods that backing the Agamemnon and Achilles. And during the story, and again, if you watch the classic 50s, 60s sort of Greek movies, there's a lot of moments where you have the hero, he'll do something, and then the camera will pull out, and now you're in Mount Olympus, and now you've got the gods, and they've got the big war table, and they've got the little figures, and it's like, and then they have arguments, stuff like that. That is very much of what those stories were about. You'd have the human side of it, and then you'd have the god side of it, and you'd have the gods arguing. And it was very sort of very poignant, very focal to the story piece. And watching this, even though it's taken away the god side. Look, the gods are mentioned obviously, but they've taken away the whole god interaction part of it, and just have it as like real life, really, of like just having humans against humans. It's still good, but there are many moments where I'm sitting there thinking, I would have just loved to seen Apollo or any of the other gods just smite down Achilles or have arguments like they did. They had arguments where, like, because like in the whole story, Zeus stayed neutral for the whole Iliad. He was neutral. He was like, I'm not picking sides. I'm not on either sides. So it was the other gods, the lower gods, that fought against each other and argued against each other of like, no, you should back me. No, you should back me. No, it's bad what Achilles did. We should sort of smite him. And then other people like, no, Achilles, he's honorable and blah, blah, blah. I feel like it's missing that. I know this movie's like 2 hours and 48 minutes long, but those moments when you could have had the gods just appear, that's my only downside about this movie, is the fact of everything else is great, but I wish there was gods. I wish the gods were front and center of, like, you know, Achilles, like in one part of the story, Achilles and his army of 50 men take the beaches of Troy on their own, just completely take it, right? And then they get to the temple of Apollo, and one of his men goes up there and goes, oh, Achilles, maybe we shouldn't sort of, you know, do this, because Apollo sees all, he sees everything. And there's a big golden statue with Apollo, and Achilles does none other, it's pretty awesome, swings round with his sword, chops the golden head of Apollo off. It falls down, and obviously his companions looking at him like in shock. I can't believe you just done that. And Achilles just doesn't care. He's like, let him smite me down. I do not care. And it would have been great for a moment where the camera pans away to the gods, where like Apollo is like he's in awe, but he's holding his neck as well, kind of fact of like, I can't believe he's just done that. I'm going to smite him down. And then when you get Hector comes in, Hector sees what he's done, and he sees that they've killed the people in the temple, the priests, and even Hector's saying to Achilles, like, these unarmed men, you didn't need to kill them. They were just God-fearing sort of men. You didn't have to. And Achilles like, I don't care. Really just don't give a shit, basically. And you know, stuff like that. Like, it would have been great in those small moments just to have the gods, even if they didn't do anything, even just to have the look of, oh my God, I can't believe he chopped the head off my statue, sort of thing. Like, these little moments to me would have added in to the sort of story, would have added into me getting immersed into the Iliad, really getting immersed into this story. And that's one thing I really hope that Christopher Nolan does with the Odyssey, because again, the gods are very poignant in that movie, that he has the gods in it, or even if you don't have the gods front and center arguing, just have them there, just to know that, like, Thunder for Zeus or something like that, where just to let you know that the gods are there, the gods are ever present, that you don't see the gods, but they're there. Like, that's what I would like, is just some proof or sort of show of force or whatever, just to prove that the gods are there, even if you don't want to show them because of runtime, just something, you know. So that's my only real gripe with the movie. But when I was thinking of that, it also made me think of, like, well, there's a director's cut of this movie, which is about 3 hours long, which is an extra 36 or so minutes onto the sort of runtime. And apparently there's a huge scene that I missed out, where, like, Edward Norton is in the movie, and he plays the, is it the Leper King, who is the god of Jerusalem, I think? Yeah, the Leper King. There's a whole story of him and Achilles and their relationship together, and there's more time with Achilles and his cousin. That's another thing as well I'll mention as well when I get to the story. Achilles and his cousin, and then there's more. Apparently the battles are longer, which again I thought the battles were long enough, and they were pretty gruesome. And again I'll talk about those when I get to the story. But apparently they're a lot longer in this extended version, and they're more bloodier and gory, which again is fantastic, because that's one of my favorite parts of this movie, was how the gore and how it was pretty realistic. And it made me think of, like, I really want to watch the sort of director's cut of that movie. Apparently, like I said, it's longer, it's got more scenes. It makes, even though it's a longer movie, it adds to it all. It adds to everything. It's just from what I've said for some of the reviews, it's more of a complete story. Whereas, like, if you were let down with Troy, if you watched it and you didn't feel as fulfilled, you feel like there was some things missing, that we didn't get enough time with Paris and Lady of Troy, if we got not enough time with Hector and the King and Agamemnon and all this, like, if you feel like we didn't get enough time with these characters, apparently you get a lot more time with them. It's a lot less fast paced. It's more dialogue heavy, which for some people might be an issue because, again, I would imagine you watch a movie like this, you're expecting Gladiator, you're expecting action, you're expecting great dialogue, but action. And like with Gladiator, and I tried to explain this to my mom, I was like, this is the Iliad, so it's very human focused. It's very war focused. So it's very much of like argumentative, really. Like, you took my wife, so I want revenge. You've done my honor. So it's a very dialogue heavy. The battles are epic, but it is very much of a human story. So I wouldn't mind watching a 3 hour version where it was more dialogue, slower pace, and then have those epic battles. Because to me, it would make those battles feel a lot more heavy and poignant because we've spent the time getting to know the characters. So when certain characters die, it's more of a stab in the chest of like, oh my god, I can't believe you've just killed X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Oh, I can't believe this person's died. You know, so for me, being like a big fan of the Iliad and in Greek myth and this movie, I would happily have a longer scene, and maybe I'll do it. Maybe I will. Like, that'd be an interesting topic to do, wouldn't it? Be like, watching the theater version of the movie, then watch the extended version of the movie, and do like a small bonus side review to see the differences and see if the director's cut is better and more superior than the movie cut. That'd be an interesting topic to do. Maybe I'll put it down on a list. We'll see. But that's my first impressions. Overall, I really, really liked it. I just feel like the gods needed to be there. I feel like if the gods were there, it would immerse me a lot more into the story. Again, they didn't have to be. If you didn't want to show them in terms of like have actors and dialogue, then that's fine. But it would have just been great to have some sort of inkling that they were ever present, that they were there, that they were watching, and that the actions of the characters had an effect, and the gods were angry or they were happy or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, just something just to let you know they're there. So that's my only real gripe. As for the story's great. So, if anybody who doesn't know the story of the Iliad and the Battle of Troy, and with Paris and Lady of Troy, basically, long and short of it, Agamemnon and his brother, they are basically they've taken over Greece. They've got complete control. They've got control of every single army. The reason being is because Agamemnon has Achilles. He has the greatest warrior in all of Greece. The thing is, though, in Achilles, in this story anyway, Achilles just doesn't give a damn. He's a talented fighter. He loves to fight, but he's not interested in land or what's the word I'm looking for now? He's not interested in conquering. He's just the fact of, I'm a really good fighter. I want to fight. I'm not interested in the spoils. Like, I'll come, I'll fight, I'll go. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. Especially in the story anyway, the way Achilles is portrayed. And so that is sort of the beginning of the movie. There's this one guy, I can't remember the guy's name, that Agamemnon goes to, but he basically goes, you don't want to fight me. I don't want to fight you. So what we'll do, you get your best fighter, I'll get my best fighter, and whoever wins, if I win, I'll leave you alone. I'll go, if I win, I'll take your army, and then that's it. If you win, I'll leave and I'll never come back. It's very honorable times. It's very like shake hands, honorable. You stick to it, right? So Achilles comes, and as Achilles does, in one swift blow, takes this big mountain bloke down, and he's just there. He just stands in front of the whole enemy army and just points his sword at him. I'm like, come on, who's next? Come on. And obviously they're all scared, and like it's ended. And then the story goes on, and then you basically see Hector and Paris. They are the princes of Troy. They've gone to meet the king. I think that king is actually Agamemnon. I need to actually check who is the king I'm referring to. I've just looked. It is Agamemnon. The one king I was mentioning was by Brendan Gleeson's character Menelaus. So anyway, long story short, Menelaus meets with the Hector and Paris, but Hector basically falls in love with Helena of Troy, because she's the most gorgeous woman in all of Greece, and they have a bit of an affair and sleep around, and basically Helena goes like, I don't want you to leave, please don't go, but I know you have to go. So Paris basically goes, well, come with me. So he takes her. Obviously Menelaus is like, well, no, we've just bartered peace. You've now took my bride. You're now taking the piss, right? So he goes to his brother Agamemnon, but look, they've embarrassed me, and in effect, they've embarrassed you, and this is not right. And obviously, Agamemnon's been looking for a reason for a long time to go to war with Troy, but he's had no reason to be honest. Now that his brothers come to him and like, look, we've got to do something. He's happy because he wants all of Greece and he wants Spartan Troy. So he gets all of his men and Achilles to go fight. Achilles again, he's not interested, but he's like, all right, fine, I'll go. And like from there, the story starts to get going. Like you have Hector finds out that Paris has taken Helena. Hector is a brilliant character, and he's played so well by Eric Bana because Eric Bana. He's an underrated actor. He really, really is. I think he's fantastic in everything he's in. But you can see in Eric's eyes the way he plays Hector when he's looking at his brother of like, send her home. Put her on a ship, send her home. It's going to start a war. Like, we don't need this. Like, father has spent a long time bartering peace only for you to get pussy whipped, to follow your penis, and, just to get swooned by, a woman. Because Paris... he's a young lad, he's a young, good-looking lad. Again, he's played by Orlando Bloom. He goes every port they go to. He slept with like 100 women. You know what I mean? And it's one of those where Hector's like, look, you can have any woman you want. Why did you have to have this woman? And Hector even goes to his father and he even says to him, like, look, please talk to him. Tell him to go. Tell him to put her on a ship and go. Like, please. But his dad's very much like, I've never seen Paris like this before. Like he sleeps around, but he finally seems to actually have some sort of a goal now, a future. I can't do that. I've seen into his eyes. And Hector kind of looks at his brother Paris, and Paris says to him, like, look, you're my brother. I love you. Like, you said you would protect me, and that, no matter what, you'd always be by my side. And there are many moments in this movie where Hector, he's trying his best to, he's like, look, I didn't want this war. I don't want to do this war, but I'm stuck because I'm having to defend my brother. And because I'm the prince, I have to fight. And because I lead the army, the men look up to me. And Hector's a brilliant fighter, highly skilled, but he has a wife. He has a child. He doesn't want to fight. You know what I mean? But he has to do it because of his brother. Like, I was watching my mum. She was like, this all could have been averted if Paris just kept it in his pants. I was like, no, damn straight. If Paris had just gone, yeah, we've had a fling a few times, Helena, I'll be back in town soon. You stay here. That would have been fine. Like, he might have been caught eventually, but, a lot of people would have survived. But a lot of people died because Paris couldn't keep it in his pants, basically. Which is the long and short of it, really, is the story. But Eric Bana plays Hector so fantastically, and it's just one of those where, like, you just feel sorry for him because, like, he doesn't want to fight, and he's brave enough to go against Achilles. Like, he knows the legend of Achilles, but he's brave enough to go up against him. But it's one of those where it's like, look, I just want peace. He would be a fantastic, brilliant king. And he was on the trajectory to be king because his dad's old and he was soon to take it over. But because of his brother, who is basically a coward, and I'll get on to talking about Paris in a minute, he's basically a coward, steals another man's wife. When that man confronts him, on a battlefield and says, look, we don't have to fight today, but tell you what, and like Paris basically goes, look, I'll save the men's lives. I will fight you in hand-to-hand combat, right? If I win, I keep Helena. If you win, you can kill me, sort of thing, right? So Paris fights against Menelaus. Menelaus, being a lot more veteran, older sort of warrior, basically slaps the ass off Orlando Bloom, off Paris, right? Beats the crap out of him. He's like, look, honourable, you fought well, honourable death. I'm going to stab you now. And just as he's about to put his sword in, Paris gets up and runs, and he's basically wrapped himself around his brother Hector's leg, of like looking up to him, blood out of him. And Menelaus runs up to him. He's like, he looks up at Helena. He's like, this who you left me for? Seriously, it's basically. It's drama. That's all it is. It's drama because that's what they were. They were done for plays. These stories were told to be told around, a fire, be told around, an auditorium. Like, they are plays, so it is very dramaful. But it's so well done. He's like, you got Menelaus. He's like, look, this is who you left me for. Seriously, And he runs up to Paris. He's like, look, you're a dishonorable man, but like, I won fair and square. You've got to die. And Hector's just like, look, walk away. please don't. And like Menelaus is like, no, we had a deal, we had a bargain. I've got to kill him. And so he has a cool line, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically says to Hector, like, you either move or I'm going to kill him between your legs, and I don't care. So he goes to stab him, and Hector basically protected his brother, stabs Menelaus, and the war basically begins. While all this is going on, you've got buddy Achilles on a hill with his men, not involved in the fighting, just watching, just being like, this is a shambles, absolute shambles, complete and utter, terrible. He's shouting like, get your men in line, because the battles are they're up there with what's the word, with Game of Thrones, with like the battles, or the Battle of the Bastards, when it is literally just they're in line together, and it's just pushing, it's just stabbing with spears, nobody's really moving, and there's just people bodies piling up on each other. You've got to climb over bodies to get to the enemy and that sort of thing. It's brutal, it's bloody. One thing that I love, that to think about it, you don't really see many battle movies, which makes no sense. So you have a battle and you think, okay, if I've got a sharp blade and I'm cutting throats and I'm slashing arms off and I'm stabbing people in the stomach, and all around me people are doing the same thing, so there's blood splattering everywhere. You're going to be, at the end of it, if you survive, if you're lucky enough, you're going to be covered in blood, guts, gore. You're going to be red. You're going to be dripping. Your armor is going to rust with the blood, right? In this movie, they do that. When they take the helmets off, you've got streaks of blood in the hair. There's bits of blood in the face where like the face mask was open. Achilles' armor is covered in blood. It's brutal. It, like, you can see when people are getting their heads smashed in, when there's like knives going through people's heads, like, it's carnage. But then that's what true battle would have been like. And he has, when he goes to talk to people after battles, he's still got blood dripping off him, dripping down his face, dripping down his armor, off his arms, his sword dripping with blood and that sort of thing. Like, that's realism. That is what it would be like. And I hate it when you see movies when they have a big battle and they're just covered in mud and guck, and that's it, really. Like, no blood, nothing like that, just mud. And I'm like, well, no, he's been in bloody battle. He's going to be covered in blood. He's like I said, his arm is going to rust with the blood. It's going to be that putrid all over him. He's not going to come back clean. He's going to come back, covered in a massacre, basically. So I love that. So the battles are absolutely brilliant. Again, Brad Pitt as Achilles, he does a fantastic job. He's very stoic. He's very much sort of like, he knows who he is. He knows what his legend is. He knows that he's Achilles. He knows he's the greatest fighter. So there's no need to be big-headed, to have an ego. It's very much the fact of, I know I'm the best. I don't need to shout about it. I didn't want to be here. You made me come here. And it was because of Sean Bean's character Odysseus, who is the only person that Achilles actually cares about or listens to, apart from his cousin, who convinces him to go to war. And then when he's there, like, he gets the beach, and then when Agamemnon is like doing his fighting, and he's only after it for land, and that's all he really cares about, Achilles is like, look, I'm not interested. I come to fight your wars. I'm not here. That's it. I'm not interested if you win or you lose. I'm just here to fight. That's basically it. And like, it's like, there's this great line, and I'm going to use it from now on, where Achilles is with Agamemnon in a tent, and they've caught this woman who is a priestess. Obviously, we know in the story who the priestess is. She is she's Hector's and Paris's cousin, and how can I explain it? Achilles basically has her, looks after her, and they kind of have a bit of a cute romance sort of thing going on. But the men find her, so they take her to Agamemnon. Agamemnon, being a very creepy, pervy sort of king, is like, look, I'll make you my slave, you'll bathe me, and then maybe a little bit later we'll do some more. And Achilles finds out, he comes in, and he points his sword, and he goes, men, you drop her now, and let her go and step back if you know what's good for you, because he'll kill them. And they do, because he knows he means it. And this, when he has his big argument with Agamemnon, like, you sack of wine, which is a great line. He basically, you sack of wine, all you care about is fighting. I didn't want to be here. I'm only here because of Odysseus. I'm not here for this, and blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. And great dialogue. I can't remember all of it. It happened so quickly. And like Agamemnon's like, I'm your king. And he's like, yes, I might be like, you might be the king. But like Odysseus even says to him, like, look, you might be the king, but the men don't respect you. The men are not here for you. The men are here for Achilles. If Achilles leaves, which he's at one stage in the story, he says, I'm going to go. The men instantly lose all sort of loyalty and care. And there is such a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of, there is a word, but I can't think of it. Like in the ranks of the men, they're all sort of disheveled. They're not interested. They don't want to fight. To the point of like they're losing the battles because Achilles isn't there. And when Achilles is there, they're rejuvenated. They're fighting. So even Odysseus is like, look, Agamemnon, you might have the biggest force in the world, but you haven't got enough men to take on the walls of Troy. You need Achilles. And it's that moment he realizes, like I need him. But like I said, Achilles just doesn't really care. So I really like Brad Pitt as Achilles. Hector, Brando as Hector is incredible. Orlando Bloom, you don't actually get a lot of Orlando Bloom as Paris. Paris, he's a little bit at the beginning, and he has his moments with Helena of Troy, but really you don't get a lot of him. Brendan Gleeson as Menelaus is fantastic. Then you've got Brian Cox as Agamemnon. I always struggle with that name. Does a fantastic job as well as a king. This is young Brian Cox as well. But I was just waiting for any moment just for him just to tell Achilles to fuck off. I know he doesn't, but I just would have found that funny. But yeah, the cast is really well done. Also, this is a movie where Sean Bean doesn't die, which was a nice surprise. Like there were many moments where I thought, okay, Sean Bean's going to die here. He's in the thick of battle. Here we go. And then it doesn't happen. I was like, oh, okay, that's a surprise. But yeah, that's the story really. There are many moments when it alludes to Achilles' heel. There is a moment where Hector gets really close of getting his heel, taking him down, but he misses it and gets his greave on his front of his leg instead. Like there's great death scenes. Like I said, the only real downside with a lot of these death scenes is that even though, like I knew they were coming because again I knew the original story, but even though these death scenes are great and really well done and choreographed in these battles, it's still one of those where it was just like I wish I had more time with these characters to care. Like Hector is a brilliant character and he's a very honorable man, and you can tell there are many moments where he's trying to say to Achilles and he's saying to his father, like, let's make peace. Like that when they had their first battle of Troy, when they had their first fight, after Paris basically cowers out and Hector kills Menelaus, once they've done the fighting and the other army goes and the Trojans, win. Hector's basically like, look, we've pushed them back. We're in range of their archers. We don't need to go any further. Again, he's a very smart, clever, tactical sort of general. And he goes like, send out an envoy to the Greek side to let them know they can come get their dead, right? And we'll just pull back and we won't attack them. And he does. He's a man of his word. He pulls back. They go back into the city, and there's archers on the walls, obviously, to watch them. But he allows the Greeks to come collect their dead. To have your moment. We won't attack you. Build your pyres. Burn your dead. Put them to rest any which way you can. Really honourable. And even Achilles is very honourable as well. When Achilles fights Hector and kills him, Achilles even says to the father of Hector, the king, even says to him, like, it's custom in my land that when a prince is killed, that there is 12 days of mourning. And the king's like, well, in my land, it's the same thing. And then Achilles, because again, he has control of the army, really. The army's loyal to him. He basically says to him, like, I will grant you 12 days of peace. Hector was a fantastic fighter, great adversary. Lay him to rest. Have your 12 days of peace. Have your celebrations, mourning, whatever you need to do. My men will not attack. And for 12 days, he's very honourable. He keeps his word to it, which again I really really love that. And one thing I love about this story as well, before we get onto sort of the other things, I didn't think they would do it, but I was greatly pleased when they did. They actually do the horse. They do the Trojan horse. I didn't think they would do it. I just thought, they would leave that out because they didn't add in the gods. I thought, it would be a bit too flim-flam, a bit too mystical, a bit too sort of outworldly. It feels like they were trying to ground it a little bit. But they didn't. They actually do the Trojan horse, and they do it really well. They pretend like there's plague, and that they've got all the ships, and they've sent all the ships to the other side of the island. Obviously, the Trojans don't know this, and all that's left is this horse. And they go, it's an offering to Zeus. It's offering to Poseidon to have a safe trip back back to Greece. And Paris is a clever one. Paris goes, we should burn it, get rid of it, because obviously they think it's a totem to one of the gods, of like, burn it. That way, their totem is burnt, so their ships will sink at sea, sort of thing. But the king is like, no, we'll take it. So they take it into the city. They have their celebrations. All goes dark. Everybody goes to sleep and that sort of thing. And then they come out of the horse. And as they come out of the horse, they start killing everybody. And they open up the gates, and then all the other men on the other side of the island, they're all marching, and they run silently. Like, how can you run silently? I don't know, but they run silently. Nobody screams or shouts. There's no battle cries. They all running, and you're in the dark. You can just see the shadows of the men in the moonlight, and you can just see tons of them running towards the city, and they kill men, women, like children, all the innocents. They basically ransack the city, and then you have that big battle between I don't really want to spoil the end, but yeah, Achilles. Well, if you know the story, Achilles heel. There's a reason we call it the Achilles heel. Achilles gets taken down by his heel by Paris, and he goes down. Like he tries to stand up fighting, but once you've taken out his Achilles heel, he goes out for the count, and that's it. Really, that's Achilles gone. I didn't think they would do it. It was something I didn't think they would do Achilles heel, but they went for it again because it's in the Iliad. So I'm glad they kept it in. I thought that because they had Brad Pitt, they probably would have wanted to franchise it, probably potentially do more. But no, they stuck to the story. They did the Trojan horse. They did the Achilles heel thing, which again I was really pleased and appreciative of. But yeah, overall, I really, really liked the story. Like I said, I would have liked a bit more with certain characters. A bit more dialogue, and again, I feel like I'll get that out the director's cut of the movie, which I'll probably buy that on Blu-ray because it's going for quite cheap online. And maybe I'll do a little side bonus review, kind of seeing which one's better and that. But yeah, I really liked the story. I thought it was really, really good. It was definitely worth the 2 hours and 48 minutes long. The music was great as well. The music felt very much like Gladiator. Like I said, it felt mystical. It felt Greek. It felt like it got you into the idea and concept of the Iliad, of the story, of these battles. And when the battles are happening and the music intensified, you felt part of it. And obviously with the visuals as well, with the brutality and the gore and the swiftness. Again, probably a bit of a drawback with shooting is the fact of there are times when, like, I know Achilles is the best fighter in the land in the world, and he moves quickly, but the camera shots, like, they are so quick that it's one of those where it's like you don't get enough time to see Achilles actually swing his sword, because he swung his sword, then the camera switches, and now he's swung his sword, now he's doing this, now another camera shot, and it's so quick that it's like fact of like, just let Achilles move. Like, I know it's trying to represent how fast he is, but it's just a fact of just let him move naturally. For me, that's enough. You don't have to have like 10 million different camera shots. But yeah, the music, it's really, really good. It suits the time period. It really immerses you into the story. The production and the design and the world design is brilliant as well. The ships are great. The way the armor looks is very authentic with the Trojans. Like, I will admit, the Trojans look like cone heads. Like, the armor it looks fantastic, but they're all got these very coney sort of shaped heads. Whereas like the Greeks have the classic sort of Greek helmet with the long mane on the top. I love Achilles' armor and Achilles' men. They really stand out because they all wear black armor, which I love that detail. They makes them easier to spot. When you've got all this carnage going on in battles, you can spot who Achilles is and who Achilles' men are, and then you have all the other soldiers have like their standard sort of bronze sort of armor, like just brighter armor. So you can differentiate sort of who's who, which I appreciate, especially when you have battles with like Hector and his men, because again, Paris never fights in any of these battles, really. You can tell who the Trojans are. You can tell who the Greeks are. You can tell who the Achilles is and who his men are, which again I really love and appreciate. What else? I was trying to think of something else. Oh, that's about it for really production design. Like, then they all like the city of Troy looks faithful. Like I said, we never really know or knew what the city of Troy looked like. We can only go off what the Iliad described it as. We know it had big, strong walls, and it was impenetrable, or it was meant to be. The only reason it didn't is because the horse. But Troy did exist. You know, I've said this many times. If you listen to the podcast enough, when I talk about myths and legends and how there's always a bit of truth in stories, Troy was a real place. It was found, I think, in the 80s or 90s, and they've done carbon dating, and they've found there is evidence of great battles going on in this land and a fire. And then, if you know the Iliad, and if you've watched this movie, you know at the end of the movie, Troy was ransacked and was burnt to the ground. And who knows? Because again, from the evidence that we found, there it does point very much so, and I am of the belief from all the evidence and this story that the Trojan War did happen. Now, we all know what writers are like. At the end of the day, there is a high potentiality. There's a lot in this because again, writers like to embellish. There is a high potentiality that a lot of these things were probably embellished. So even though I'd like to think it was real, the horse probably wasn't. Even though the whole thing with Helena of Troy and Paris, maybe that was real, maybe it wasn't. Again, you've got to have a bit of drama. You've got to have a reason for a war. For all intents and purposes, it could have just been Agamemnon wanting to go to war and wanting land, and that Troy was one of the last lands. Because I think where Troy is, I think it's currently in Turkey, where Troy is, or shall we say where Troy was. I think it's actually in Turkey at the time, so it wasn't part of mainland Greece. So you had to sort of travel over the Aegean, I think it is, to get to it. So it could have just been that. It could have been there was a war. It could have been the land that Agamemnon didn't have, so he just wanted to take it for himself. Who knows? But I like to think that it did happen, that this was a real war. This was a real thing. And I'd even like to think the horse was real as well, because it's funny. You know, if I had a time machine, that's one place I'd love to go, just to the award, just to see, like, you know, if there actually was a horse. That's one thing, because again, it's wood. It would have rotted away. There's no proof that it happened. But there's stories, there's tales. So who knows? I think there is. Troy existed. There's evidence of a battle. There's evidence of a fire. Yeah, my mind, it happened. Did it happen exactly like the Iliad? Probably not, but it was a real thing. But yeah, come to my overall thoughts. I love this movie. I do. And going what I just said about me believing that it did happen, and being a big fan of the Iliad and being a fan of Greek myth and stuff like that, even though there's no gods, I really did enjoy this. Being able to see the battles, to kind of, and even to ground the battles, like to have those moments when you have the men being like, we don't want to upset the gods, we don't want to upset Apollo, we don't want to upset Zeus, we don't want to upset Poseidon, we don't want to upset these gods. Because again, the Greeks, like everything they did was chartered off pleasing the gods. You know, we can't do this because it will sort of disrespect the gods, so we'll do this. And so everything was very God focused, and they everything they did was just like, we've got to make sure the gods are happy. So to have those moments where the men are like, we can't do this because it disrespects this god, we've got to make sure that we don't anger this god. And then to have those moments where Achilles like chops the statue's head off of Apollo and like, I don't care. It's so strong and poignant that it just would have been great to have those moments with the gods, in my opinion. But to be able to have this story, to be able to have the Iliad, to see it with my own eyes, was great. And it's left me with that want that I had at the end of Gladiator. I just wish we had movies like this, these historical, mythical battles, because again, we used to get them a lot. Like I said, we Kingdom, I think it's Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom. You had Gladiator. You've got this. You had the ones from the 50s and 60s. I'm sure there's others as well, which I can't come to mind right now. But you used to get loads of movies like this, you know, in the 90s, 2000s, and that. But they just seemed to stop one day, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because audience weren't going to see them, when they weren't profitable, or maybe they were just too expensive to make. I don't know. But it's got me nostalgic for that time period, and it's got me more so now wanting to watch a lot more of these movies. Like I said, Kingdom of Heaven, I only ever saw a bit of that. I think Jeremy Irons is in that movie. I think I saw the trailer. I don't think I've actually ever properly seen that movie. And I don't think it's actually called that. I think I've got a different name, but I know Orlando Bloom and Jeremy Irons are in it. But that'd be a movie to watch. You know, it would be great to review. So I'll probably look into that one. But yeah, overall, this movie, it has done exactly what it needs to do. You know, to quote Gladiator, are you not entertained? Oh, I am entertained. I watched it twice and I want to watch it again for the third time, but longer. I want more. It's left me wanting more. And I feel like if I watched this in 2004, even though I would have been very underage for it, but if I was 27 back in 2004 watching this, going to the cinema, I would have been very much pleased. I would have been happy with it. I would have came out being like, look, I generally enjoyed that, and I probably would have gone to see it again. You know, I thought it was really, really good. You know, generally not brilliant, not excellent, mainly because I feel like it needed more dialogue. But again, I'll get that in the extended version. But overall, I'd say it's a very, very good film, and it's definitely worth watching. If you haven't watched it, give it a go. By the time this review comes out, it's no longer on Netflix, so I can't recommend going to watch on Netflix. But to get the DVD will probably be peanuts right now. It'd be really, really cheap. And if you wanted to go as far as get the Blu-ray, it's probably very, very cheap now to find. And more than likely, when one movie goes off one streaming platform, it means it's going to go on another streaming platform. So there's a potentiality it's on another streaming platform. So you might be able to find it somewhere online, or even go on Amazon and probably pay for it there, or unless it's free on Amazon Prime. Either way, it's a movie that's worth watching. Give it a go. Granted, you've got to find about 2 hours and 40 minutes of free time somewhere, which I would say currently watching it during a heat wave, when it's too hot to do anything else but watch TV, I got very, very lucky. But if you can find some free time, definitely sit down, give it a go. I think you'd enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and the battles are great, and yeah, that's what you come for really with these movies. You come for the battles, but for me, I come for the battles and I stay for the dialogue. I stay for the drama. It's just funny because I don't like drama in my life normally, but when it's like Greek drama or Roman drama, or like mythological sort of drama, like, you know, the Arthurian Knights and all that sort of thing, I'm all here for it. It's very weird. You put dragons into it, I'm interested. You take dragons out, I can't be asked. Anyway, so that is my overall thoughts and feelings on the movie. As for a bit of what you think, listener. So as I do whenever I watch any movie, I always post it onto X of what I'm watching, and that if you have any thoughts and feelings, if you like or dislike it, or any sort of things you want to add, then add them down below to the comments. So I put on to X that I was watching Troy. Again, if you want to get involved, follow me on Twitter at howdybeans_pod, and whenever I post anything, any movie that I'm watching, if you want to write a comment down below and you want to shout out, then please do. So the first comment comes from VHS Abyss Movie Podcast, a brilliant movie podcast, by the way. Highly check them out. They said, enjoyed it. Plus, it has a great insult line I still often use to this day when Brad Pitt says to Brian Cox's character, "You sack of wine." Yeah, that is definitely one I'll be using from now on, most definitely. If anybody who doesn't know, I know it's not as funny when you have to explain the joke or a meaning of something, but for anybody who doesn't know, basically, when you call somebody a sack of wine, you are calling them an idiot, a buffoon, sort of like a drunken idiot sort of thing. Like I think, if I remember correctly, it's like you're calling them a klutz, you're calling them like a fool. Basically, it's basically like you are a sack of wine, you are a waste sort of thing. You know, you are nothing. So it's a great line, you know, to use, and like it's because it's not a common phrase. You could use it on somebody and they probably wouldn't know what you mean, but you know what you mean, so you have a little chuckle to yourself. So that's one I'm going to use from now on. But you call somebody a sack of wine, they're not going to know what it means. I'm going to know what it means, and I'm going to have a fun time. Then we had the Totally 80s 90s Recall podcast. They said it's not so great for me, but I'm sure others loved it, which is fair enough. You know, like I can understand with this movie because how long it is. I can understand with this movie for some people it might be a bit too slow. I said that to my mom when we watched it, when I put it on for her. I said, like, don't expect Gladiator. Don't expect, you know, a lot of action, a lot of high stakes sort of actions, things going on very quickly. This is the Iliad. It's a very slow story. Like I imagine when Christopher Nolan, when his Odyssey comes out, it's going to be upwards of 2.5 to 3 hours long, because if knowing Christopher Nolan, he's going to want to do it properly. So that's going to be a long movie, and it's going to be mostly dialogue. And again, if you've watched Oppenheimer, you know that most of that movie, if not all, is dialogue until you get to the end when they first detonate the bomb, and then from there you get that's your action, and then it's dialogue, and then it ends. So for me, again, like I said, that works, but I can imagine for a lot of people going in off Gladiator, expecting Gladiator, and then going on to this and having a very dialogue heavy film. Like, again, there's still action, but there's still a lot of moments when no fighting's happening and it is just a lot of dialogue between characters. Like, for example, Achilles and his cousin. You don't get to spend enough time with his cousin. So when a big fight falls his cousin, with Hector, it's one of those where it's like it's very sad, but to me it wasn't as sad or as brutal as it could have been, because he didn't get to spend enough time with his cousin to really care about him. And again, this comes back to what I was saying, is the fact of it just feels like you just needed a bit more time with certain characters to really ham him those moments when you have those death scenes and those battles and those close shaves in battles where you feel a lot more connected to the characters. So you're a lot more energy. So, oh my God, they almost died. Oh my God, they didn't die. I'm so glad. I really love that character. You know what I mean? So those little moments would have been extra scenes and extra bits of dialogue with those characters. How there's extra moments to really get close to them would have helped. But again, I'm sure they're in the extended version. If they're not, it doesn't really matter. But we'll see. I'm sure. Yeah, you know what? I've convinced myself. I'm going to do it. I don't know when I'll do it, but I'll find time to do it. And it'll be fun and interesting. We'll see. And anyway, we had another one from Review It Yourself podcast, another fantastic movie podcast. I've been on it a few times, a big fan. Sean writes, haven't watched it in years, but the battle between Hector and Achilles was epic. Peter O'Toole was great too. Yeah, Peter O'Toole, he's great in everything. But yeah, battles with Hector and Achilles was epic, to be honest. You get two of like the best fighters in the world going up against each other. Like, you knew Achilles was going to win, but Hector was the only warrior who was able to get a hit off on Achilles. He actually, like, Achilles goes into battle with his shield, and many times he deliberately puts his shield on his back and then doesn't use it. And then, even though they're shooting arrows at him and throwing spears at him, he just dodges them like the Matrix. You know what I mean? Like, he's like Neo on the battlefield. He's just dodging them. He's like, I don't need a shield. Like, I'm the greatest warrior ever lived. Like, and he's not egotistical about it, but you know what I mean? He's dodging stuff. And soldiers are coming at him from left, right, and center, and not a single one of them lays a single blow. Hector, he lands a blow. Granted, it doesn't pierce his armor and it doesn't like cut him or anything, but he nicks his armor. And you can see Achilles' armor. There's not a single scratch on it. It looks pristine. It's never been touched. So all the battles that Achilles has been in, no one's ever touched him. Hector was the first person to touch him. And there's this, it's a couple seconds. It's only a split second, and I didn't notice it till my second time. But if you watch that battle, at that moment when Hector gets him, nicks him on his breastplate and gets him on his front greave, on his leg, you can see in Achilles' face that slight moment of like, he hit me, in disbelief. It's that disbelief in himself, or that disbelief of like, he's good. Like, you know, I'm not messing around with just like some common soldier. He knows what he's doing. He is a soldier. He is a warrior. You know what I mean? So you can see in those moments when Hector gets him, Achilles ramps up. He gets faster and he gets a lot more move around. And obviously they have their fight, and obviously Achilles wins. And it's just an epic fight. So good. It's even better on a second viewing. And then finally, which is from the Bitches with Beard podcast, which is a brilliant name for a podcast. They write, I remember it was the big film. It felt like it was riding the Lord of the Rings Gladiator wave. I really enjoyed it at the time. Never watched it again. I guess I was still in shock that Sean Bean survived. Yeah, I was shocked too. I didn't know Sean Bean was in this movie, to tell you the truth. And then to watch it, oh my God, there's Sean Bean. And then it was like, oh my God, there's Sean Bean. And I was just like, it was like, If you've watched Hot Tub Time Machine, right? This is a weird analogy, but if you watch Hot Tub Time Machine, there's a moment when they go to the hotel, and there's this guy he's got one arm, right? And then they go back in time in the time machine, and there's this gag all the way through the movie of finding ways of like how this guy lost his arm, and like he's doing ice sculpting, and then he falls over and it goes down. And you think, oh my god, the chainsaw's chopped it off, and it didn't. And there's many different ways you think he's going to lose his arm, and at the very end of the movie, he loses his arm in the most unsuspecting way, and it's brilliant. It's one of the best gags of the movie. I love that film. Maybe one day I'll get around to reviewing it if I ever decide to do back to the sort of like time travel movies. But all for that movie, you're waiting of like, there it is. Oh, damn it. And that's what I was like with Sean Bean in this movie. Of like, there he is. He's in the battle. And he doesn't die. He's like, oh, well, I'm glad he doesn't die because, again, I love Sean Bean. I love his character, Odysseus. Again, I would have loved more time with Odysseus and Sean Bean as him. But again, tomato. And I'm waiting any moment, and he doesn't die. And then at the very end, I was like, come on, final battle, Siege of Troy. No. But he has one of the best opening lines to the movie, and he has one of the best closing lines to the movie. I can't remember the beginning one, but he basically, Achilles has died. He's put him on the pyre. Troy's been destroyed. In the ruins of Troy, they put a big pyre in the middle of the city, put Achilles on top, and Odysseus lights it. And as he comes down off the pyre as it's burning, he has this line. It's like that basically goes. I'm paraphrasing, but I lived in the time of great battles. I lived in the time of heroes, but most importantly, I lived in the time of Achilles, which is brilliant. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's a brilliant line, and it's really well sort of said by Sean Bean in this movie. But yeah, Sean Bean survives, which is a surprise. It's probably one of the very rare few movies where he does survive. But thank you very much for all those people that read and got involved with the thread on X. Again, if you want to be involved, if you want to shout out, then by all means, next time that you see me post any sort of movie that you've watched or you're interested in, or you just want to talk about, then by all means, put it down in the comments and I'll reply to them. And I'll read them out on the episode. So before we finish, because I haven't done this in a while, I want to do a bit of trivia. So Brad Pitt and Eric Bana did not use stunt doubles for their epic duel. They made a gentleman's agreement to pay for every accidental hit, $50 for each light blow, and $100 for each hard blow. Pitt ended up paying Bana $750, and Bana didn't owe Pitt anything. That's brilliant. Like, it's not only funny, but it's brilliant for multiple reasons. One, they're playing Hector and Achilles, who are two of the most honorable warriors ever, right? Very gentlemanly, very honorably, sort of like stick to the code, stick to honor. And then Brad Pitt and Eric Bana had a gentleman's code of like, if you hit me and it's a hard blow or light blow, we'll pay each other sort of money, sort of thing. Like, we're going to do this properly, but if you hit me, you got to pay me, right? Which is fair enough, gentlemanly, and fair enough to sort of Brad Pitt, because he's playing Achilles, he has to hit, and there's got to be some sort of force to it. So it made sense, and it just shows how good Banner was, and also how good of a warrior Hector was. Didn't get a single bad hit on Pitt, which I thought was pretty brilliant. But also, I love it as well because it makes that scene better. That epic battle makes it more real because you're not having the edits, you're not having the cuts of like, oh, that's Eric Bana, that's a stunt double. Then that's Brad Pitt, then it's a stunt double. No, it's Eric Bana, Brad Pitt fighting each other. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you want to see, and that's what you get. And it just makes those moments even better. Would they do it nowadays because of sort of insurance and that? Who knows? It'd probably bump up the insurance of the movie. They're like, no, we'll do stunt doubles. But I really respect Brad Pitt and Eric Bana. Just be like, look, you know what? We'll pay each other money if we hit each other, but let's do it properly. If we're going to do it properly, which I love that. Odie mentioned in the introduction that Brad Pitt tore his Achilles heel, his tendon during production, which I find that incredibly ironic. He's playing Achilles. He injures his Achilles heel, which was named because of Achilles. I just find that so ironic and funny. I'm sure Brad Pitt did it as well, to be honest. I would have. If that was me, I would have found that incredibly hilarious. Brad Pitt trained for 6 months to get a body that looked like that Greek statues, which, yeah, I see it. You see more of his arse than his six-pack, but Yeah, because there's a lot of nudity in this film. Not frontal nudity, but there's a lot of bums in this movie. Then Sean Bean was in awe of Peter O'Toole. The first time I met him on the set, he says, he was in a robe with a cigarette holder, and he said, "Sean, how are you, dear boy?" He was just how I imagined him to be. Peter O'Toole, brilliant actor, one of my favourites. But yeah, I think I would have been in awe as well if I'd gone onto set and I'd saw him in full-on sort of King Greek regalia, smoking a cigarette, and he looks at me and goes, "How are you, my boy?" I'd be like, "Oh God, I'm great now," you know. The final one. So the Trojan horse prop sorry. Start again. The Trojan horse prop was given to the Turkish government as a gift. It is now on the boardwalk of Katakala. I can't pronounce it. I do apologize. A seaside city, anyway, about an hour away from the site of the Troy ruins, where most Troy tourists stay. That's cool. I'm glad that. Like, I'd love to go see the ruins of Troy, one day. So, yeah, if I ever go to Canacale, yeah, that place. If I ever find myself there, that'll be interesting to take a picture in front of the original. Well, not the original, but you know what I mean. Like, you know, the Trojan horse prop that was used for the movie. I'd love that. But yeah, that is all she wrote, to be honest. I don't know what the next historical one was going to be. I could do The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. I could do the Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom. I'm sure there's others. But if you have any ideas in your mind that I haven't covered yet, again, by all means, please do put them down in the comments down below. If you listen on YouTube, again, like, comment, and subscribe. Put it down below. What other historical sort of epic battles? It hasn't got to be Greek. It could be medieval, anything like that, samurai. Like, if it's one that was in that time frame of those sort of movies, by all means, put it down below, and I'd love to check it out. Again, you can do the same if you listen on Spotify. Spotify now allows you to leave comments. So at the bottom of this on Spotify, there's a little comment section. So if you want to leave any feedback, or you want to, again, leave a comment of any movies or recommendations of films that you want me to check out, or any thoughts and feelings on Troy, then by all means, put them down below. Again, like I said, you can follow me on X, HowdyBeans_pod. And yeah, that's about it, really. So thank you very much for listening to my long review of Troy. I absolutely loved and adored this movie. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It was really, really good. Not brilliant, not like out of this world. Like Gladiator, I would say, is better. And I haven't watched Gladiator 2 yet, but Gladiator is still number one. This coming in number two. It'll be interesting to see whatever I watch next in this genre, if it gets dethroned or not. But I am definitely on the inkling of wanting to do that episode on theatre version versus director's cut, because there's so many different movies you can do it to. But doing it to this movie to see which version's better, which version's more superior, in my opinion, that is anyway, would be an interesting topic. Again, I don't know when I'll get round to it, but it's definitely getting down in the books, and it'll be one I will look at when I can. So, yeah, thank you very, very much for listening. I've been your host, Luke, the Elder Bean. You've been to the Howdy Beans podcast, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.